Hey everybody, it's Mike from the Mike Wagner Show, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Looking for a professional website without breaking your budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. You can check our Facebook page at Facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and also on the YouTube channel on the Mike Wagner Show. You can subscribe to that. Also on Anchor FM, Radio Public, iTunes, Apple, and Google Play as well. And take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. We're here with a wonderful gentleman from the other side of the Atlantic. He's the author of Mistress of the Rock and Scylla the Revenge. He's working on a third book as well, too, as part of the trilogy. He worked in the travel industry for 30 years, freelance for BBC, radio, and TV. He wrote for the Two Ronnies, Week Endings, and the News Headlines, and full-time copy wrote for JWT, and also created Tube Walking as well. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk about the book, mainly Mistress of the Rock, which was very fascinating. That's published by Rock Hill Publishing, thanks to James Hill as well, too. And without further ado, live from the other side of the Atlantic, just comfortable in his really cozy chair and having a little tea and enjoying a little coffee as well, too. So let's raise a glass and some tea as well to a wonderful author, ladies and gentlemen, Myron Edwards. Myron, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Mike. It's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So you're the author of Mistress of the Rock and Scylla the Revenge. You have a third book that's in the works that's published by Rock Hill Publishing of New York. You've been in the travel industry for 30 years, and you freelance for BBC, radio, and TV. You also had a few creations as well, too, and we'll be talking about your book. But first, before we get into all that, tell us how I got started.
Well, the book got started basically because I'm married to a Greek Cypriot, English Greek Cypriot, and before we got married, we came over to Cyprus on holiday, because this is all about really Cyprus, the whole situation. And we went for a lunch at the Petra Romeo. Petra Romeo is the area where Aphrodite's Rock is. Now, Aphrodite's Rock is the famous, or supposedly the birthplace of the goddess of love. Okay. There's nothing there except these three rocks. That's all there is. So there's no evidence of any sort of physical being of the like a statue or anything like that representing the mistress. So I call her the mistress. I call it Aphrodite. So effectively, we went there and we had lunch and we were looking around at the place. And I said to Nikki, why is this place called Aphrodite's Rock? There's nothing here that actually represents Aphrodite's Rock. I mean, I can't see anything. If you look at the famous pictures of Aphrodite's Rock, you know, by Botticelli, there's no reference to the area where the where she comes out of the sea, because Aphrodite means from the foam. That's what it means, because she was born from the foam. I won't go into how she was born, because there may be people under the age of 12 listening, but effectively she was created from the foam. So you have this situation where I was sitting there in a restaurant and I was looking around and I saw something on the wall, and this is what kicked it all off. I saw something and I thought, I don't believe it. I actually saw a picture. Now, the picture I saw was from the Cyprus Tourist Board. Now, believe it or not, I have never been able to find it. Now, whether this was my epiphany moment or not, I think it probably was, but I've never been able to find this, and I've done a lot of research trying to find it. But it struck me as really strange. The picture showed an image of a woman under the sea. Now, that gave me the impression that this may be why it's called Aphrodite's Rock, and maybe this is the whole essence of the story. Mm-hmm. So what I did then was I didn't do any more for a while. And I thought, well, okay, I'll let it rest. And now we were in England for a while and decided that maybe it wasn't right for us to be in England anymore for reasons, family reasons. And we decided to come to Cyprus. Now, when I came to Cyprus, one of the things I intended to do was to write the screenplay. So I wrote the screenplay of Mistress of the Rock, based on my idea of what I saw at the time when we had lunch. And I thought, yeah, this is not bad. So what shall I do now? I know. I'll turn it into a book. So I wrote a book, one copy, for my wife on Christmas Day to give to her on Christmas Day. It was a
nice. Very nice.
Yeah. Well, you know, love story, Petra to Romeo, the goddess of love, etc. Christmas Day. What a nice thing to do. Just give her the book. So I gave her the book. Anyway, she inclined to said, yeah, okay, it's nice, very good. I'm going to let other people read it. So other people read it. They said, this is really good. Why don't you get it published? You see? So I looked around and I thought, well, okay, I'll look around for a publisher. So I saw very few publishers in Cyprus, by the way. And there was one publisher in Nicosia who I wrote to. And I said, I've got this book, I've got this story. And he said, well, have you got it as a synopsis? So I sent him the synopsis. And he said, have you got this as a book? And I said, yes. He said, come to see me on Monday in Nicosia. So I went up to Nicosia. Kind of a long story short, we printed the book. We did everything that we could. And then we did all these wonderful things about going around and seeing people and all the rest of it and selling books, printing copies and all of that. And then what happened was the Great Recession happened as far as Cyprus was concerned. And in between that, I had an offer for a film that was going to be made about the Mistress of the Rock. We had people like Gillian Anderson. She had signed up to play one of the roles. We had some other people who had done some music for us. The screenplay was done by a chap who worked on the BBC with me. When all said and done, we put it all together. But then the guy who was backing it, he pulled out. So the 3 million or 4 million or whatever it was going to cost to make the film went out the window. At that point, that's when the crucial side came in, because at that point Cyprus went into free fall. So there was nothing. There was no finance or anything like that. And it stayed dormant for about 2-3 years. So I had this book, nothing to do. I couldn't find anything local wise to do. And I was on LinkedIn, I think it was. I was looking on there, and I came across James Hill, and he was an American publisher. So I wrote to him and said to him, look, this has already been published. Is that an issue for you? And he said, no, it's not an issue for me at all. Send me the synopsis. I sent him the synopsis, and bless his cotton socks, he loved it. And he published it. And that's where we are today. He's my publisher. He has a brilliant editor called Athena Paris. And she basically made it come alive. She took the book, she made it come alive. And I got lots and lots of people who were then saying, this is really good, you should turn it into a film. If you go onto the website, mistressoftherock.com, you will see all the comments that there are on there about people loving it. There's also a YouTube video as well, which you've seen, Mike, haven't you?
Yes, I have. That's right. It's amazing. It should go in the film, and I was going to ask you about that, but go and continue. You're on a roll. You're doing a great job.
Okay. Well, look, the one thing that I had to do was, you know, I told you about the image that I saw. I've never been able to replicate the image. Sorry. I've never been able to find the image that I saw, and I was really frustrated. So on my travels, when I was going around, I did a lot of book sales, and I met up with a guy who did he did a book called Cypress from the Air, which was Denny Rowland, his name is. Really nice guy, Denny. And I said to him, Denny, look, you're doing your Cypress from the Air books, great. I'm doing mine. Have you got any pictures of Petritul Romeo from the air? So he said, well, yeah, I've got loads. So I said, well,
Oh,
do you mind
wow.
if I use some or look through them? So he gave me a disc, and in this disc, I went through about maybe 100, 150 shots of from the air. And then just purely by, I don't know, fluke or what it was, or something or other, this picture came up, and it was the picture of the rocks, but it was taken from a different angle. And the angle that it was taken from meant that if I turned the computer up sideways, which is what I did,
Mm,
I could see something in the water. And
okay.
I thought, I don't believe this. And I was sort of, I was a bit dumbstruck, because when I turned the image up, I saw in between, in the book, as I explain in the book, Richard, who is the hero, if you like, goes out to the rock when he finds the image, as I'm describing it to you. He goes out to the rock and sets up this plan, and the image that he sees is the same image that I see, the same principle. So I turned the screen up, and what it was a figure of a woman. Now you've seen it, haven't you?
Yes, I have. That's right. And I also read it. You described it in great detail and everything else. And I was going to ask you really quickly too. You had a part where it's like the character talks about or Richard getting into a business of diving down to go see Aphrodite. Now, when you guys were in Cyprus, did they actually have tours where they went down to see Aphrodite's rock underwater, or was it just like roped off and just look above from the water or a certain distance?
Well, in the book, they basically, what they do is he goes out to where the image is, and he ropes it off so that the people are able to go out to the rope, duck their head into the water, because it's at such a level that you're almost got the same sort of thing as like the Blarney Stone in Ireland, where you
Uh-huh.
go and you kiss the Blarney Stone. Well, the same sort of euphoria is what is trying to be created with this image in the water. So you go out to the water, you kiss the image, and when you come back up again, it's only like 2 feet or whatever. So you just duck down into the water, kiss the image, and away you go. And that is the essence of what the tourist side of it is. Now, if you were to go today down to the Petritul Romeo, to the rocks itself, you could walk out and you could see the same rock as I saw, from
Hmm.
that. Whether you see the image of the goddess is only really available from the air, but you will see the rock. It's between the two other rocks, the main rocks. And that in itself was the like, if you like, the catalyst for the whole story, because that gave Richard the idea that he could create something unique. He could create something that had never been done before, and at the same time bring about a sort of renaissance for the island of Cyprus. That was his whole plan in that.
Hmm.
Now, I tried to do a similar thing with the actual people here in Cyprus, the Cyprus Tourist Board, people from Paphos. I've tried to speak to the mayor. There were several festivities that they could have used, but I'm on a, shall we say, I'm on a steep incline going downwards, and nobody seems to want to give me a little push upwards. Simply because it's something that they can't quite grasp in that respect.
Hmm.
Um, they don't see how it works, and I try to not be as entrepreneurial as possible, but I'm trying to say to them, you have something quite unique here. You have something that other people do not have. Now, I watch American TV quite a lot because we have American TV over here. You have
Uh-huh.
a program about werewolves, not werewolves, about Bigfoot, right?
Bigfoot, yes, all the time. And there's like countless and countless and countless stories about Bigfoot. on just
Right.
about every network imaginable. And I have to say this, it's like, every interpretation. And I have to say this, I just want to make sure he's not coming my way right here. So if I see Bigfoot, I'll let you know behind me.
Yeah.
So
But Mike, what I'm saying is there's ghosts, there's Bigfoot, there's the Loch Ness Monster, which is all now already been proved that it's a false thing anyway. There's all these different sort of phenomena, okay?
mhm.
None of them are proven in that respect. Yeah, I have seen and to continue to see, as you will when you look at the video, a phenomena that I can't explain. I can't explain why the shape of this rock happens to look like a woman, why it happens to look like a Greek woman. It has that visual sort of feel to it where you can actually see the shape and contours of a woman in the sea. Now, you tell me, why is it that the goddess of love is in the place where she was reputedly born, and the figure is that of a woman who could even effectively be the goddess of love?
That is a good question. I'll have to ask some people about that, and I'll get back to you on that. And as I think about the question more and more, and we'll get back to the book in just a minute, you listen to the Mike Wagner Show at the MikeWagnerShow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at SonicWebStudios.com for all your needs. Looking for a professional website without breaking your budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960, or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show, get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios, take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on the MikeWagnerShow.com. Check our Facebook page, facebook.com/the Mike Wagner Show. You can also download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio. Also on Radio Public, Anchor FM. Subscribe to the Mike Wagner Show on YouTube. Also, check out the program on iTunes, Apple, Google Play, and take the Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. We're here with author Myron Edwards, the author of Mistress of the Rock and Scylla the Revenge. We'll talk about that later on as well, too, in our next program. He's worked in the travel industry for 30 years, freelance for the BBC, radio, and TV, and also full-time copywrote at JWT. And we talked about Mistress of the Rock, and of course, you asked that question about the image, about what I would think and everything. I'll probably ask my lovely wife, who's probably like an Aphrodite as well, too. But in my mind, she's still a wonderful Aphrodite. I mean, of course, when you're married, it's like you still think your wife as an Aphrodite. So it's something to reinforce, I have to say. And there was one question I had as well, too, that, Richard being an entrepreneur, having scuba diving equipment, having like a hook or a crane, you can go down into the sea and be able to kiss. Now, if you were in Greece and someone came up to you and say, have you go down and scuba dive and check out Aphrodite, Mistress of the Rock, would you do it?
Yeah, I mean, yes. That's a question that's been put to me before. I've walked out to the rock because you don't need to actually dive down. The idea is that you walk out maybe 10 or 15 feet out into the water, and the waves are reasonably good. They're not particularly high at that point. And you walk out, and in the actual book itself, there is a guide rope which people follow up to the point where they actually then, if you like, bend down into the water and kiss the rock or do whatever they want or touch the rock, and then come back up again and then go down the guide rope so that the next lot can come up. So yes, I mean, yeah, if you go down there, but if you went to the actual site today, you would have to see it from the air rather than see it from the ground level, because all you'll see is a rock from the ground level. You don't get the image until you see it from the air. That's the thing.
Mm-hmm. And it's also in the book as well, too. It called out the name of Richard in like a siren voice in a female form. Now, of course, if you went over there, did you actually get to hear the sounds? Will people get to hear the sounds, or are you allowed to imagine it in your mind?
You imagine it in your mind because you've got to consider that my story is a story based fictional, but with possible fact as well. But you have to have you either believe or you don't believe. It's as simple as that, really.
Mm-hmm.
If you think the image is what it represents, you believe it. If you don't believe it, you don't believe it. It's fine. But I've had lots of people who, on the YouTube thing, for example, they write, I've never heard of this before, and I've lived in Cyprus all my life or whatever, and I've never seen this before, and I'm quite astonished. I can't believe people haven't grabbed hold of this, from a point of view of marketing it as
Mm-hmm.
a valuable tourist attraction.
Mm-hmm.
I
And,
can't believe that either.
and of course, you talked about Greece going into financial plunder as well, too.
Well,
And
Cyprus, yeah,
or
Cyprus
Cyprus,
and
yes.
Greece together. Yeah, I mean, Greece was first, and then Cyprus followed. They thought Cyprus would avoid it, but the problem was that Cyprus and Greece are very much akin to each other. Cyprus sees Greece as being the motherland, so if you come here, you will see Greek flags flying everywhere. From that point of view. But yeah, the problem was when the difficulties happened in Greece, Cyprus was quickly to follow on, even though I thought it would avoid it. And a lot of people lost their jobs. A lot of people lost their lives. A lot of people committed suicide, actually, believe it or not. Because the financial constraints were so bad that they met a bank closed down, and it was a horrendous time, and it lasted for about 8 to 9 months. So,
Mm-hmm.
if you're trying to put something together like a film with no budget, again, it's impossible from that point of view. I
Mm-hmm.
would like to say one thing. I think Cyprus has woken up to the possibilities of a film industry.
Mm.
They've now got a thing called olive wood, believe it or not.
Olive wood. Interesting.
Olive wood, yeah.
Olive wood.
And the first film that is being made is called Jiu-Jitsu, and it stars Knight Rider guy, not Knight Rider, Nick Cage. Stars Nick Cage.
Nicolas Cage, yes.
Yes, and there's a Greek director, Dimitri, but I can't remember his surname. He's the very famous director of all these kung fu films, and he's Greek. And he came over about 2 weeks ago. He was over here for about 4 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks, making this movie. So I presume it's going to be out next year. Features Nicolas Cage. And they say they have about another 3 or 4 films in the making that are happening in Hollywood. Now, I'm trying to get my screenplay out into the market so that we could make a film in Cyprus and bring the Mistress of the Rock to life in the movie. That's what my ambition is. So.
Mm-hmm. And would you try to bring back Gillian Anderson and the ones you had proposed to, or would you go after another star, like say maybe of higher caliber, or maybe like lower cost or lower budget and everything like that? Maybe like an up and coming star or something.
I think at the end of the day, it's somebody who has the right sort of, shall we say, belief in the project and how they envisage what they can do with the project. It doesn't matter too much if they're unknown. In fact, I'd like the Aphrodite character to actually be an unknown person, because it would be very difficult, I think, unless you got, I can't even really think of anyone in my own mind that would be the best person to play that role. But I would like, we did run a competition when we were trying to do the first film to find an Aphrodite. And like everything else, when it all just died down, and it did die down, everybody just dropped out, because once the money had gone, everybody just lost heart. That was the problem.
Mm-hmm. And of course, with the new thing with Aphrodite going down and kissing the rock and witnessing the rock and everything, and of course with the Cyprus and Greeks markets being backing up, would it be a good time to open up as a tourist attraction for the new Aphrodite?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Totally. I mean, if you look at what happens when you make a film, and the follow up to that, so many films have been made, and then the people come to see the location where it is afterwards as tourists. So from that point of view, I mean, okay, people go to Paris, but there was also the Da Vinci Code that they went to see in the Lourdes, the museum. What's it called? Museum. Um,
Let's see. I'm trying to think. The Louvre or
no, yeah, the Louvre, yeah,
the Louvre. Yes, the Louvre.
Yeah, we're in the Louvre, where the main area of the Louvre where the Da Vinci Code was set, and of course everybody went to see that, and then they went to see the church and in Scotland. This in its own way would generate. It does get good tourism now anyway, but not significant tourism in its own way. One person wrote in a few years ago that Cyprus has got a tourist magnet, but it doesn't know what to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that in its own way is an indictment of the problem that we have. You have a situation where you've got something truly unique, but people do not know how to market that particular situation.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you had a movie, it would almost market itself. Do you know you see what I mean?
Correct. Yeah, it's like saying with you had like the Da Vinci Code being at the Louvre or a major attraction in Paris, it would just come itself. Like say if you did a movie in London and focus on Big Ben, Big
Yeah,
Ben pretty much speaks for itself. And
yeah,
Aphrodite, you found a way to basically just highlight it and have a film surrounding it. Aphrodite
yes.
Rock would sell itself. I totally understand. So landmarks pretty much sell itself.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to get at. I'm trying to, well, my idea is to sort of leave a legacy for the island in as much as, by giving people the idea that there is more to Aphrodite's Rock than what they think there is. So that in its own way would generate tourism based on the book and based on the film. So that's the essence of it.
And of course, too, you also created a device which has like walking maps to assist commuters. You developed that and something good for Greece. We'll talk about that in just a minute. You listen to The Mike Wagner Show at themikewagnershow.com, powered by Sonic Web Studios. Visit online at sonicwebstudios.com for all your needs. Looking for a professional website without breaking your budget? Sonic Web Studios is the answer. Sonic Web Studios offers fast, affordable custom web designs that blow the competition away. Call today at 1-800-303-3960. That's 1-800-303-3960. Or email to support@sonicwebstudios.com. Mention the Mike Wagner Show. Get 10% off your first order. Sonic Web Studios. Take your image to the next level. Also, the Mike Wagner Show can be heard on themikewagnershow.com. Also, check our Facebook page, facebook.com/The Mike Wagner Show. You can download and listen on Facebook, SoundCloud, Spreaker, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Also, watch The Mike Wagner Show on the YouTube channel. Subscribe to The Mike Wagner Show. Also, you can check out Apple, iTunes, Google Play, as well as Anchor FM, Radio Public, and take The Mike Wagner Show with you on any mobile device. We're here with author Myron Edwards of Mistress of the Rock and his second book, Scylla the Revenge. We'll be talking about that before we wrap up, and also for a next program as well, too. He worked in the travel industry for 30 years, freelance for BBC, radio, and TV, and give us a really good insight to the book, Mistress of the Rock, involving Aphrodite and the rock itself. And, of course, we encourage you to check out the book, published by Rock Hill Publishing of New York. And you also created a device which is short walking maps to assist commuters and tourists. It's called tube walking. And when I read about that, that sounds really interesting. So tell us all about it.
Okay. It's a long time ago, but one night I was coming back I used to work in the West End in Chinatown. And one night I was coming back from Tottenham Court Road. And unfortunately, in those days, the Underground wasn't as proficient as it is these days. London Underground is very good these days. But in those days, you used to have strikes. You used to have all kinds of different bits of problems with the underground, and the buses weren't working this particular night. So I was forced to, because I lived in Essex, and I had to go back to Liverpool Street. So I was forced to walk. But instead of walking in the normal direction that I would have taken, I took shortcuts. And these shortcuts, I worked out that by the time I got to Liverpool Street, my shortcut distance had gone to about 25 minutes, which normally would have taken me maybe 40 minutes.
Wow.
So I thought, hold on a minute, if I can do this from Tottenham Court Road in 25 minutes, maybe there's something else that I can do. So I started walking around a few places, and then the sort of kismet situation happened. I met a taxi driver the night, a couple of nights after, and he was saying, "Yeah, well, of course, with the knowledge that a taxi driver has, he's able to create routes for you using shortcuts." So basically, what I did was I took the idea of a taxi driver's knowledge using shortcuts and interpret them on a map. Take out all the normal sort of map type stuff and just leave yourself with routes. So in other words, if you were going for, say, Bank to St Paul's, you'd go forward from the station Liverpool Street, then you turn right, and then you turn left, and then you go forward, and then you turn right again, and then you turn left, and then you work it out, and then you find that you probably got there in just under 16 minutes. So we would time it, and we would then also show the route and everything else. And we did this for the city, we did it for West End, we did it for theatres, we did it for a river walk as well, and we did it for a royal walk, which meant you visited the palaces and that sort of situation.
Interesting.
And we sold these little books for about £1.50 in those days. I don't suppose you remember Filofax. Do you remember Filofax?
Firefox, Filofax?
No, Filofax was like a dictionary, like a diary thing that you used to carry around in the 80s. It was very trendy. So we had these Filofax maps, which you put into this Filofax folder, and we used to have those as well.
Filofax. Okay, now I got it. Okay, it took me a little bit to register. Now I got it. Good.
I mean, in hindsight, if I'd been clever and sort of thought about it, what I should have done, and I don't know how far Apple or any of those were at this stage, but what I should have done was take the idea to somebody like Apple and then create the maps, which you'll see today on every Apple phone or every sort of every other mobile device, and give it to them for them to market. Because when you're marketing something, you need the power of somebody behind you who can actually be able to generate sales. And I didn't have that, because all I was doing was selling it on my own.
Right.
And I sold a few books over the period of time and that sort of thing. Eventually we got to a stage where a guy was going to buy it. He was going to take it over. Then his company went bust, so unfortunately it never materialized. So I put it onto the web, and the maps themselves were just available for people to download. And in fact, I still get now today. I got a request for 4 maps again. So it was on the map. It was on the web. I don't know if it's still on there anymore, because It probably has run its time. At the time, it was very good. We had a lot of fun with it. I did TV, radio interviews and things, and we raised money for charity using the same idea as well.
Oh, nice. Very nice. It almost sounds like the early days of GPS, which is being used. And if you were to apply, like, say, the tube walking convert to GPS, do you think somebody in Cyprus or Greece will be able to buy into it? And I'm sure that could be very well used right now, especially leading up to Aphrodite's Rock.
Well, unfortunately, Mike, Cyprus people don't walk anywhere. I'm not telling you. I'm not telling fibs. If there was they have what's called a barypteron. Barypteron is a newsagent or a tobacconist, as you would have in the States. And they would get out of their car, go 50 yards down the road, open the car door, go into the tobacconists and buy their whatever they're buying, newspapers, sweets, chocolates, or whatever, and then get back in their car and drive away. Walking, as you can imagine, in this temperature as well, is a bit difficult. It's not seen as being the best place to walk. London, Paris, yes, great. Rome even as well. And in fact, we did have at one stage the idea of going to Paris and producing tube walking maps for Paris, because it would have been easy to do for the metro, But yeah, I mean, it was good experience. It was a good experience.
Mm-hmm. And of course, you also had 30 years in travel industry and also a lot of experience for the BBC radio and TV. And maybe you can tell us about how you first got involved with the BBC. Very fascinating.
That was I used to write with a guy called Phil Campbell, who he worked at Hammer Films when he was younger, and he's done a couple of Hammer books as well. But he and I were in the same rock band together, believe it or not.
Oh, really?
I used to play drums, and he was the lead singer. And we did a couple of things together, like we did a German tour in the 70s, and we did some other stuff as well. We made recordings, none that that would ever get onto sort of BBC and things like that. Right. Uh-huh. And then eventually the band got to a point where it got to its sell-by date, if you like. And then Phil said to me, well, look, I'm going to write for some hospital radio shows, some comedy scripts, because he'd worked on various things when he was at the Hammer, and that he was very clever with his scripts and stuff. And basically he said to me, would you like to help me with writing some comedy? So I said, well, I've never done it before, so I did some of the comedy in terms of writing scripts, but I also did the actual I did the actual production itself. So I was actors in this Charing Cross Hospital Radio, believe it or not. Uh-huh. And we had about, say, 25, 30 scripts or whatever. The hospital radio decided that it wasn't going to be something that they would continue for one reason or another. So we had all these scripts left over. So Bill sent a few scripts to the two Ronnies and other places like Hudlines and things like that. And they got picked up, which I couldn't believe. The two Ronnies picked it up for their Christmas show. It's still now running on. If you see a Christmas show on the two Ronnies, that the gag that we did is still there, and it's hard to believe it all these years later, but we still get royalties for it, believe it or not. Like 20 pence comes through or something like that. But and that in many ways kicked off my whole writing career in that respect, because when I started to do that, I then got into a stage where I was writing on a weekly basis for the shows that I told you about, Headlines, Weekendings, the Ronnies itself, and then we would be invited to write things for various TV shows. I did one in Scotland, which was a kick up the 80s, which starred Tracy Ullman. You know Tracy Ullman? Yeah.
Yes, well, Tracy Ullman.
Tracy Ullman, this was one of her first shows, and one of the sketches that I did featured her. So wow, it's quite chuffed from that point of view. And then I did some other bits and pieces with various people. Alfred Marks was a very famous English comedian, very stoic comedian, and I did some bits with him. And there was a very talented lady who died very young called Marty Kane, So
Oh.
I did some bits with her as well. And then, you know, as things went, we drifted away. I got married, he got married. And then we sort of dropped our partnership a little bit to a certain extent. He didn't write anymore. I didn't do anything much comedy wise. We had to find jobs, so we had to earn money. You know, from that point of view, there wasn't enough in terms of freelance writing to be able to continue. Um, and that really is what happened. And then I started to dabble with books and things. So I wrote a couple of books, not printed books, nothing like that, just to give me a bit of experience in writing books and screenplays. I did a few screenplay things as well. So yeah, that gave me a little bit more sort of impetus. But I didn't start writing until I came out here, because at that stage, I I didn't have really anything to write about. It was just
Uh-huh.
this epiphany thing with the Mistress of the Rock that kicked everything off. And then since then, I've written maybe 4 or 5 other books as well, which are in the pipeline, sort of thing as well.
Hmm. And he also got a second book too called Scylla the Revenge, which we'll be talking about. And just give us a little very brief background about it. We'd like to have you on next time. We'll talk further about the book.
Okay. The basis of the Mistress is that Richard Cole, who is the English corporal or in the book, witnesses something that changes him, and he has a PTSD situation. Now he witnesses something. Mike, you're probably familiar with this, Jughead or something like that. The film. It was
Hmm.
based on Highway 80. Now, the story evolves around Highway 80 in the first Gulf War. Now, you know that the first Gulf War, as far as the land war is concerned, lasted 20 or 24 hours, 72 hours in total. There was very little in the way of action. Once it got into Kuwait, that was it, except what happened on Highway 80. So Richard is seconded by his sergeant to go as a witness to find out what's happening on Highway 80, and he doesn't expect anything to be, shall we say, and he doesn't expect anything. He's just going there as a witness. But what he witnesses changes his whole persona, because the horrors that he encounters on that particular journey have great emotional things for him. They create so much sort of vivid dreams that he has, which are recurring nightmares and things throughout his life. Um, and what his one safeguard is that he keeps coming back to Aphrodite, because when he goes first of all to the Gulf War, he's in a helicopter and he's flying over the rocks. And as he flies over the rocks, he turns his head and looks back at the rocks and says to him, says to almost like the goddess herself, "Please keep me safe." And there's like a beacon that flashes in behind him, as if it's a signal saying, "Yes, I'll keep you safe." You know,
Hmm.
um, and in its own way is what he conjures up in his mind. This is his thing. He believes that he's going to be kept safe from all disasters, from all horrors of the war, and Aphrodite's going to be his guardian, sort of thing.
Hmm.
Um, and really, it doesn't work out like that, because what he witnesses on Highway 80 is so traumatic for him that he wants to escape, and as he tries to escape, so he gets himself into a situation of like not a nightmare sort of scenario, and the only relief that he gets is when he encounters, I don't want to spoil it for the readers, but he encounters what he believes is Aphrodite,
Hmm.
and she keeps him safe and says, "I will keep you safe always," you know.
Hmm. And of
uh,
course,
and
And of course, we'll talk more about the book as well too. Like to have you on back of the show, talking more about the book and a preview of the third book as well too. And of course, I forgot to ask you as well too, since you've been the entry for 30 years, you wrote for BBC, TV, and radio, and forgot to ask you who are your favorite writers and some of your favorite actors or singers back in the day, or what you watch during England.
I would say Queen. I've recently watched the new movie on Queen that came out, which was brilliant.
Oh, it's fantastic. Love Freddie Mercury.
Yeah, absolutely. So Queen, I did see the Rolling Stones live at Hyde Park, and I also saw Cream. I liked Fleetwood Mac. I saw them live. I saw England Corner, believe it or not. Of course, the Beatles. Well, I grew up with the Beatles anyway, and I love Elvis. I think Elvis is the showman in every way, and it was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Elton John. I was very lucky with the music that I grew up with, and you know, that sort of thing. Led Zeppelin, because we played a lot of Led Zeppelin. We played a lot of Status Quo as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that sort of thing. As far as writers are concerned. George MacDonald Fraser. I don't know if you've ever heard of George MacDonald Fraser, but he wrote the Flashman series. And I was very fortunate enough to get his autograph just before he died. Brilliant books. Absolutely. Flashman is based on the Tom Brown School Days bully. And it's after the time when he leaves rugby school, and he becomes his own man. He's something of an anti-hero, but everybody loves him because he's always involved in things historically which are fact. So if there was like, for example, there is a piece in the one book, I can't remember which book it is, where W.G. Grace, who was a very famous cricketer, he was playing at the Lords, the cricket ground, and the idea is that Flashman bowls to him 3 times. He bowls these people, and he gets the other people. If you follow cricket, he gets the other people who are on the other on W.G. Grace's side out, which means they have to bring in a new batsman. And at the end of the innings, he's bowled out 3 people. And he takes his hat off and throws it to W.G. Grace, and Grace turns around and says, "Well, that's a hat trick, my boy," and that coined the expression hat trick. That's the sort of thing that
Interesting.
MacDonald Fraser would do. He was just brilliant. As far as the other writers are concerned, Stephen King. I like the classics, Charles Dickens, of course, and I things like I'm just trying to think. When you put on the spot like that, it's difficult.
It's okay. The answer will come later, I'm sure. It's okay.
Yeah. I'm just trying to think of the other name. No, it's okay. It's gone. Okay, never mind. Yeah. What was the? So your other question was.
Okay, and I think there's also TV shows, and of course, you know, when people mention you work for the BBC or involved with the BBC, Monty Python, I'm sure will come to mind, and of course.
Yeah, definitely. Python was the original. I also would like to say that the sitcoms of like Only Fools and Horses, absolute genius. Ronnie Barker, who was one of the 2 people in the 2 Ronnies, he had a series called Porridge, which would again today never be shown, which was all about prison. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And he also did a thing called Open All Hours, which was a shopkeeper. But he was a comic genius. I mean, this guy was just amazing, absolutely incredible, so funny. He was really clever. And having somebody like Ronnie Corbett as his second player, if you like, was they were the perfect sort of duo. they had, they worked so well together. Corbett wasn't so much a single comedian, although he did do a couple of shows on his own. One of them was Sorry, I think. But the guy that I worked with, a chap called Ian Davidson, was the script editor on Sorry. So there were a few things that they used to do together, and he was the script editor on the Two Ronnies as well. So we got to know Ian Davidson quite well, one way or another.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. But I'm just thinking of the other sort of comedy shows that you would know. The Office. Did you ever watch The Office?
My daughter loves The Office. I got to watch The Office. That too is hilarious. And of course, it did a lot of other spinoffs involving The Office. And another one I thought of too, which is another nice spinoff of Monty Python, is Fawlty Towers. And that was a really brilliant one. John Kreese really got himself in the spotlight in that one.
Yeah, I mean, Fawlty Towers was a one-off, and it was pure comic genius as well, because when you consider that John Cleese and Connie Booth were going through a divorce at the time, and yet they could do their performances on screen absolutely incredible. They were just wonderful. He only made, I think, 13 episodes, and he said he wouldn't do any more because he didn't want to break the mold. But it was and still is a piece of writing genius. Cleese is very good. Have you ever seen Cleese do educational videos?
Yes, I think I remember about the educational videos, and he also had a book that was called How to Irritate People, or somewhere along the lines. Hilarious.
Yeah. Well, he's got that sort of enigma in as much as his personality does that. And the great thing about Python was that they were all, even though they were all individuals, together as a collective, they were just fantastic.
Oh, I hear a special guest in the background and saying, "Hey, I want some attention too." It's like, come on, go to Aphrodite. Go to Aphrodite.
Yeah, no, he's just saw a cat, I think.
Oh, he saw a cat. Well, they can bring him in and enjoy the show. So if your dog comes on, you can get him on the show too. We'll do that next time. So, and who do you consider biggest influence in your career?
Hi.
Hi. Hello, want to be on the show? We can do it next time.
Come here. He's gone on.
Oh, you did? Okay, that's okay. And just a couple of things here before we let you go. You've been fantastic, Myron. Who do you consider biggest influence in your career?
That's a very good question. Who do I think is my biggest thing? In my working career, I would say the boss that I worked with in Chinatown, he was a very big influence, a chap called Tony. But in my writing career, that's a good question. I don't know. It's very difficult because the idea of a writer is that basically it's a single person. They don't necessarily have a support mechanism, except when you go to the publisher, for example. So in terms of actual inspiration, I have some people like I have an agent in London called Lily. She's been a big inspiration to me. But I wouldn't put anyone in particular as being my biggest influence in that way. Family wise, I suppose everybody in the family, wife wise and kids, they would be my biggest influences. Because you're doing it for not just for yourself, but you're doing it for them as well. So yeah, I mean that I would say they have the biggest influence over me in that respect.
That is fantastic too. And what's the best advice you can give to anybody at this point?
Well, the best advice I can give somebody is if they want to be a writer, it's 99% perspiration, 1% creativity. or inspiration, because you've got to want to do it. Everybody says they want to write a book. Everybody could write a book. The difference is sitting down and doing it. That's the whole essence of it. If you have a story, and the story's original, or even if it's a story about your family and you want to tell people about it, then do it. Just write it. Tell people about it. You may never ever get it published, but at least if you ever get it out of your system, then that's one thing that you can say you've done. That's one thing that you can say you've achieved. There are very few people that will go on to be, shall we say, master booksellers or bestsellers in that respect, because you need the marketing behind you. You need the power behind you of a big organization if you're going to become like the next Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling. You've got to have somebody who's going to be able to put your name in front of everybody, which is why I'm particularly grateful to you as well, because you carry a lot of influence. And from that perspective, if I can get people to have a look at Mistress of the Rock, and they can see the value of it, then maybe somebody also in the film industry might also think, this guy's got a good idea. Why don't we make a film? So from that perspective, that's what I would say.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And looking forward to having you on again soon. Talk about your second book, Scylla the Revenge, also your third book as well, too, and a recap on Mistress of the Rock. And before we wrap up here, and I'm sure your dog wants to get you out to Aphrodite. Well, taking me for a walk.
He wants Aphrodite. To walk. As if he wants to walk. So.
Oh, there you go. And tell everybody once again your upcoming projects, your website, how the people contact you, and where can they purchase your books.
Okay. Well, my website is www.mistressoftherock.com, which also has links to www.skylar.thebook.co.uk. You can contact me through Rock Hill Publishing, which is James Hill. And you can also find it on Amazon. Amazon has it. I believe several American bookshops have it as well. You can find it on most book sites have got. If you go into Google search, you'll be able to see all the different sites that have the book featured. So
that is amazing. And Myron, just want to say it's been a great pleasure talking to you. We thank you for your time. Looking forward to having you on again soon. And we'll definitely have you on for your second book, Scylla the Revenge. And please do everybody a favor, including yours truly, keep us up to date.
I will, Mike. Thank you very much. And I do appreciate the opportunity. Have a good evening. Take care.